Welcome everyone to Health Coach TV. I'm your host, Dr. Shauna Menard, and I am here with a very special guest. Welcome, Sherri.
Hello, hi.
Awesome. Well, we have a very special episode for you today. If you are a woman in midlife, maybe you got some joint pain, menopause, some brain fog, struggling with an autoimmune issue, tune in, grab a pen. You are going to love this. Sherri has an incredible background. She's helped so many people with this, including herself. And I'm just going to give you a proper introduction and we're going to get right to it. But grab a pen, guys, because there's going to be some good juicy nuggets here. So Sherri Fogelman helps women in midlife who are suffering with autoimmune, joint pain, menopause, overcome that. She herself had struggled with psoriatic arthritis. She's going to share more of her story about how that happened and all of the side effects of everything for years. And then she took control of her health and turned that around. And so now that's what she does. She's a certified health coach, and she's going to share more about the amazing results that she gets for her clients. Her name is starting to precede her. Her clients are going out there and people are going, wow, what happened to you? And they're like, Sherri Fogelman. So I just love that. I just love to connect with people who've cracked the code on something and then are willing to share that with others so that we can help you get to have your healthiest, happiest life as well. So Sherri lives with her husband, John, and their two Labradoodles, and she splits time between Park City, Utah, and Los Angeles. And it is just such an honor and pleasure to see you and see the amazing work that you've done. So welcome, Sherri.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I love talking about this. So I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, tell everybody, like, what is it exactly that you do now? You know, what kind of work do you do? How do you help people?
Well, I help women mostly in midlife and mostly those with an autoimmune, women in midlife who are suffering with menopausal issues, autoimmune, joint pain, weight gain, and I help them feel better, reduce their inflammation without meds, and lose the weight, and just feel better so they can get back to the activities they love to do, like sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of those things that women of our vintage start to sort of can be challenged with until we kind of get on the other side of it and crack the code on that. Tell us your story. So how did you get into this line of work? Tell us about what you struggled with, what some of the afflictions that you had.
Well, I was always fascinated by nutrition. I was macrobiotic years ago before anybody even heard of that term. And then I thought I was eating healthy, right? Because I was a vegan, I was vegetarian, I did all the things in my 20s and 30s. And then I was diagnosed. I had all kinds of, like, after I had my kids, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune because I had all kinds of weird issues and I was going from doctor to doctor and they were handing me pills, which kind of made me feel better. And then I was diagnosed with an autoimmune because I had a joint finger blow up like a sausage. And it was very painful, and my toes and my knees, and I got out of bed and I felt like I was the Tin Man, and I wasn't that elderly. I was only about 40. And the doctors told me all kinds of, oh, you have little kids and you have this and it's normal. And I just took the pill. I just took the pills they gave me and I kept adding on to, you know, non-steroidals, steroidals, like all kinds of different medications. And I had gut issues. Then I had nasal issues. I was taking Sudafed and it was just piling on with the medications. After 10 years of that, I had enough. And I decided I was going to take health into my own hands, my own health. And I changed my diet. I changed my lifestyle. I did some research and I did basically elimination meets Mediterranean. I can't really put a label on it, but I changed a bunch of things, including my stress and my sleep and different exercises. And I felt amazing. I got rid of issues like my nasal congestion that I thought, oh, this just runs in my family. I got rid of a lot of stuff that I never even thought was an issue. And I was amazed. I went back to my doctor and I said, I'm feeling better. And he said, he did blood work and he said, you know, your inflammation markers are way down. You can go off of all these medications. And one by one I did. And that's my story. And then I just Since then, I've on a mission to help other women do the same thing.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people just think, they're told you're just getting older, and they look around and all their friends are struggling with weight, and their friends are struggling with joint pains and achiness and exhaustion and brain fog, and I guess that's just the way it is, and it doesn't need to be that way, and that's not normal. But then you can get quite on quite a bandwagon there when you get the medications, and then you had mentioned it was starting to impact your gut health, and then all sorts of so it just kind of went from bad to worse until you kind of hit your breaking spot. So awesome that you were able to turn that around, crack the code on that. It took you a lot of trial and error to sort that out, but it obviously meant, it was important for you to figure out and turn around. Is that why, when you finally went through it the long, hard way, is that why you said, and eventually when you did crack it, it was really pretty quick. I think 3 months was kind of, like a, quick turnaround or something like that?
Yeah, within 3 months, I was slowly, all my symptoms just dropped away, definitely within 3 months. Yeah.
So is that why you decided to become a health coach, do this work? Tell us a little bit about, that journey then, from going from, okay, just helping me, to how can I help others with this?
I did. So I had raised my 3 kids for 20 years, and I was really looking for something to do. And I thought, and this just kind of happened at the right time, the right things fall into your lap at the right time. So I did. And I went backwards a little bit. I'm like, I got to find out what I did. I gotta know this science, because this can't just be coincidence, So I went back to school a little bit. I studied online. I did a little bit of science research in a course. I went to IIN, which is the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, for a year. And I learned that what I did actually is a thing, which is you can change what you're eating and how you're living your life and your lifestyle and improve your health, which to me was genius, because it puts the control back in your lap.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you kind of stumbled upon it. Kind of because your back was up against the wall, like, I got to figure this out. And some of you maybe listening may feel like that's the way that you feel. And it's one thing when you're trialing and erroring and you're trying all these things, and then you start to get results. Sometimes you think it's obvious what you did, but it's not always. So you're like, okay, how did that work? What was it that worked? And how can I repeat that and keep it going? And then more importantly, what about others who haven't figured this out? How come I haven't heard about this? How come I don't go to the doctor and they tell me, just do this? Why didn't anyone tell me that this was a thing? And then you really studied, you went to Cornell, you went to IIN, you studied, you learned as much as you could. You used your body as your own living lab. You sort of like refined and chiseled it out to see what were the parts that were really important, and what were some stuff that, it's not so important. So you really refined this, and especially now, having helped, dozens upon dozens of people with, I don't even know how many people, but lots of women who've just had their lives transformed, like not just losing weight. I mean, we'll get into some of the amazing things. So tell us a little bit, how do you work with people? How do you work with your clients? How does that work?
Well, honestly, it's really customizable. So I have, certain beliefs that I have that, anti-inflammatory, all these things, but the way I work with clients is they call me, we work together very closely. I hold their hand, I walk them through everything. It's very customized, very individualized, because what works for one person doesn't work for another. As people know, their sister might be able to eat everything they want, like a garbage can, and all they have to do is look at pasta and they've gained 5 pounds. So everybody's different, which is why I try to explain it like I'm kind of like a trainer, like a personal trainer. I work very closely. I hold your hand. We meet every week, and I figure out what's going to work best for you.
Who are your clients? Like, what are they mainly men, mainly women? I think they're mainly women, but are they only women? And like, what kind of conditions do they have? Is it weight loss that they're looking for, or just kind of give an idea of like, who do you work with?
So mostly my favorite client is a woman in midlife. who has struggling with menopausal symptoms, and they've been to their doctor, and their doctor's like, this is just the way it is. And they're gaining weight, usually around the middle. They have joint pain. They feel like the Tin Man when they get out of bed. They're taking all kinds of meds. They can't do the stuff that they want to do anymore, like going to exercise classes or doing their whatever HIIT workouts. They are not sleeping. They don't feel like themselves. Really, mostly women come to me because they don't feel like themselves and they don't know what to do, because most women who are my age have been raised, in the 80s and 90s when they were told calories in, calories out, eat less, exercise more. So the women are frustrated when they come to me because they don't know what to do, and I help them figure it out. I don't go, against, I'm not a doctor. I don't tell them not to take medications, but I do send them to the doctor with the right questions to ask, because often they don't know what to do and what to ask about their hormones, about their gut health, about nutrition, about what medications they're on and why. So that's how we work together. And that's the kind of person I'm looking for that really is, really wants to make some changes.
Yeah. And how amazing that is to work, with their doctor, because people don't know the questions to ask, and not to be kind of butting heads at that, but then how can that woman take control of their own life, their own health? And a lot of them are really suffering and struggling. And so they're like, okay, just tell me. They're looking for someone, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And it's not like it is a pill to take and do. It's more nuanced. And so let's dive in and dispel some myths. So there's a ton of myths out there about women's health, about aging, about menopause, about autoimmune. I know you speak and teach a lot about some of these things. What are some of the things that people have backwards maybe a little bit when it comes some of the myths that they have about that it's hopeless as far as that goes? Just kind of let's bust some of those myths.
Well, that's a great question, because the number one thing that I find that people don't realize is that their genetics are not their destiny. Meaning that just because they have something in their history, whether it be diabetes or high cholesterol or autoimmune, because there's so many different types of autoimmune, from skin rashes to joint pain to, there's so many. They're discovering more like every week. So, but people think that they get a diagnosis, they get a label of something, some of these chronic diseases, and they need to take a pill, and because there's nothing they can do about it. And I love doctors, but I think they just think people don't want to do the work. So, I guess the myth that I like to dispel is you can make nutrition and lifestyle changes and change the direction of your health. You can do that, reduce your inflammation, get rid of your headaches, sleep better without a pill. It is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, that's empowering and hopeful. And then now, we're going to talk a little bit about that, and kind of, you're going to back up what you're going to say, but yeah, a lot of people get really attached to that, and they think they feel hopeless. And you're living proof that you can turn this around. You did it. You've helped others do it, and they can do it too. I know you talk a lot about like getting to the root and the core of it, getting back to nature, because you yourself, when you try to, deal with the Band-Aid solution, which treats the symptoms type of thing, that it just kind of then you need another one to treat the side effects of that and that and that. And it's just this vicious cycle. But what would you say are some of the missing links for people when they're trying to fix this? Like when you're trying to get to the root and the core, because if someone's listening now and they're struggling with some of this stuff, whether it's pain or brain fog or weight gain, sleepless nights, any of the hot flashes, any of the menopause stuff, it's not like they want to have these symptoms. And it's probably not like they've not tried to do some things, but they might be doing all this stuff. They might be like exercising. They might be like trying to eat clean and do all the things that they hear they're supposed to do. But just not getting the results. And it's so frustrating. You and I both know how frustrating it is to be like thinking you're doing all the right things and really trying and not getting there. So if someone's listening, what are some of the things that might be missing, that they might be inadvertently self-sabotaging themselves in their quest to do this? So let's just chat about that a little bit.
Well, there's a lot of things. But the number one thing I think that people are kind of missing, even though this word is out there kind of in the media, is the gut health piece of it. And what people don't realize is that 70% of our immune system resides in the gut. But what does that mean? That means that everything you put into your body, into your stomach, that's your first line of defense. And when it comes to autoimmune or weight gain or hormonal issues, whatever you're eating, if you're destroying your gut, if you're like, let's say, for example, people have been told, okay, go gluten-free is like the hot thing to do right now. And then they go to the middle of the market and all the boxes and packages say gluten-free. It doesn't have gluten in it, but it has a bunch of other crap in it that's going to be a gut buster. It's going to destroy your gut, and that is going to activate your immune system, especially if you have sort of a misfiring immune system, which is really basically what an autoimmune is. It's just overtaxed, overfiring on things like gluten. It might be attacking gluten, which then affects your joints. And oftentimes people will say to me, well, I went to my doctor and they said I'm not celiac. And, I'm here to tell you that I don't think I have one client who doesn't go off gluten. It doesn't calm down the immune system. It's just our gluten in this country is very inflammatory. So the gut health piece of it, all the fake foods out there, it really, even if it says, 90 calories, that whole thing is just, I don't have anybody counting calories because that doesn't take into account the complexity of your gut and your entire body, frankly.
Yeah, no, that, and that's important. Like, I know we kind of learned from the 80s, the low fat craze of the 80s, where everybody's going through and looking for the low fat foods that had high sugar and made everybody fat. And now it's kind of, there's a little bit of that going on with the gluten-free. And so gluten, you're right, like anti-inflammatory, but then what is gluten-free? And there's some really good gluten-free foods that don't need a label to say they're gluten-free because it's pretty obvious. And yeah, that's what it's free of. This food is gluten-free, okay? But then what is it full of? What does it have? That's what it doesn't have. What does it have? And what does that do? And it's kind of a minefield there as trying to sort all that out. And it's confusing. And then what works for somebody, like, their husband, probably, maybe they can eat it and they're fine. And it's, or their kids, and it's frustrating to sort of sort through that. And then you have people saying, oh yeah, you're not celiac, you don't need to worry about that. So it's really helpful to kind of carve through all that, that noise. So that's really good. What would you say is, a couple of tips? So somebody's listening in, and what would you say are a couple of tips that you could share with them to kind of like pop them over the results? So some things that they should take note of, or to focus on, or consider that can help them start to, unravel that knot that they're in.
I would say, there's two things that I tell people all the time, which is eat real food. Mm-hmm. So don't worry about, paleo and keto and this and that, so much. If you're going to start somewhere, stay out of the middle of the market. In the States, we have Trader Joe's here, and Trader Joe's is like, I love Trader Joe's. They have a lot of good things, but that middle of the market, they've done a really good job with those labels, with all those chips, vegetable chips. Stay out of the middle of the market and only shop where there's real food. If your great-great-grandparents can recognize it, then you can eat it. Even if it's a sauce, even if it's just start there and don't worry so much about, what diet you're on or what program you're on, what the latest thing is. Just stay out of the middle of the market. That's the first thing.
Yeah. And then what about other things other than like, are there other things? So one thing I know you talk about is gluten, and you talked about how, inflammatory it is, and like it really actually makes a difference. And I know that, as I work with a number of health coaches, as we interview a variety of health coaches, whether they're helping people with MS or get off the kidney transplant list or brain injuries, all sorts of EBV, weight loss, you name it. And I never tell people what they're to do. Like the health coaches have already figured out for themselves in their particular niche what the best way is. And I'd say 85% of everybody who I talk to in terms of health coaches who've reversed something, MS, something that they said they couldn't be reversed, it's gluten is right up there and included in that. Yes, like sugar and other things too. Maybe we should talk about sugar too, like, because that almost goes without saying, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it needs to be said, but those are really important. So let's talk about that, and then we can talk about like other things other than food even. But anything. I
would say, the thing about gluten also is that it's so insidious. It hang around for a long time, and there's total research to back that up. But refined sugars also are gut busters. People often think about like, oh, I'm just going to gain weight and I'm just going to have that cupcake, or I'm going to have that chocolate or Reese's peanut butter cup, and I'm just going to jog 3 more miles tomorrow, as if it were a energy deficit or energy burning deficit or something. And our bodies are much more complex than that. So I would say if you're struggling with inflammation in particular, the refined sugar is really not your friend. It just is. It feeds that, in your gut. It's sort of like a garden, and you've got good guys and you've got the weeds, and it feeds the weeds. It's basically food for the weeds. And if the weeds take over, that's where inflammation can really get triggered, and you're not digesting your food. And then it just a cascade of other issues come. It all starts in the gut. And in fact, Hippocrates was, I think, the one who said, like, all disease begins in the gut, many centuries before we had the science to back that up.
Yeah, because we literally are DNA wrapped in food. That's who we are, because how do we get our hormones? It's from the fat. How do we get the building blocks that make the hormones? Well, it's from the fat and the protein that we consume. And so where is it coming from? We got to eat it. And so when you got, I used to say junk food, junk mood is what happens. So, you can only work with the building blocks. And when we've got some of these chemicals that, as you said, your great grandparents wouldn't even notice this as food. It is built in a lab, and who knows? Now, the body is extremely resilient, and so it can adapt and it can evolve, and that's really great. But when things are maladaptive, when we've got symptoms like, brain fog and stubborn weight gain and hot flashes and things. And that's the thing, like a lot of people think, well, menopause is just going to happen because as you get through that age, what are you going to do? Or even age-related autoimmune, as you call it, because there's so many people with that now, like so many, way more than, than 20 or 30 years ago. So you got to think something's going on.
It wasn't even a thing. I don't even think it was a thing 100 years ago. All these chronic diseases were not a thing.
Yeah. And certainly not as rampant. If I look at my medical career as a doctor, like we heard of autoimmune, but it was like a tiny subset. It wasn't like, oh, that's what everybody has. Which one do you have? Hashimoto's? Do you have Sjogren's? Which autoimmune disease do you have? I mean, it's crazy now. And so something we're doing is taking us off, and a good place to look is at our food. That's one of several factors to look at. But it is something that we have impact over and control over, because we get to, affect how we, what we eat. And I think you're right. I think as a holdover from maybe the 80s, calorie in, calorie out. Oh, I ate this, I'm going to run it off. I remember going to exercise with friends, and we would go to, what was it? I forget. It was like a kind of a really old famous gym spa that was kind of all over the world. And we would go there, and then she would want to stop off on the way home for a treat for exercising. And I always thought, well, I didn't want to do that, because I'm like, well, then I'm at my net zero, right? Like, that doesn't really make sense. But even like, I'd be like a teenager, early 20s. But even at that, I didn't want to do that. But that didn't even fully appreciate, it's not just about the calories. If you're disrupting your gut, then you just can't outrun the fork. You just can't exercise enough off of that. And yeah, it's pretty profound. Yeah.
The other thing I tell people about real food is, like, the egg is kind of a perfect example. And women that I work with are usually in their 50s. So they were raised, started dieting, I guess, in the 80s, where that low fat craze was, and they just cannot give up their Yoplait and their low fat yogurt and their non-fat milk. And I tell clients, like, I go, the 80s called, they want their egg white omelet back. And they're like, yes, I can eat the yolk. Yes, because the yolk is so satisfying, because it is hitting the satiety hormones in your body. It's about, your hormones need real food, that we were meant to eat this real food. And you feel so much better when you eat real food. And the egg, some people can't eat eggs. I know it's an allergic food, but if you can, eat the yolk, because the yolk has the healthy fat, and the healthy fat is going to help you absorb, all those fat soluble vitamins that come with the egg, the vitamin A, E, D, K, all those vitamins. You're not absorbing them. If you're not actually having the fat, you're just peeing it out, or not even, I don't know where it's going.
Yeah, no, that's really important, is to be able to, and you're right, being bio individual on all of that. And like, people have different tastes. Sometimes they just don't like the taste of it, or food philosophies. And so, like, that's kind of one of the things that you take into account in that. But it's a good example.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good example of that. What are some of the spin-off benefits? What I notice is, when we, maybe you're really focusing on the menopause, or the joint issues or something like that. And so you get on the other side of that. But when you do it, rather than just slapping a Band-Aid on, when you get to the root and the core, like you do and like you teach, all sorts of things can change. So what are some of the spin-off benefits that you've seen with your clients?
Well, for sure, people have issues, like, for example, a chronic, runny nose that they don't realize is related to inflammation, or dry eye or something. So there's those physical things that for sure happen, that they don't even tell me that they're suffering with, because, like, an ear ringing or something, they said, oh, the doctor said, oh yeah, that just is normal for someone who's 50 years old. So for sure, those things happen 100%. The other thing that I think, that I had this one client where she was about 45 years old. She has 3 teenagers, and she's married, and 2 dogs. And she was suffering. I mean, she wasn't sleeping. She had headaches. She had 30 pounds to lose. She was fatigued in the afternoon, so was addicted to like 6 coffees per day, going to Starbucks and getting low-fat muffin at 10 o'clock in the morning, all kinds of crazy. And she didn't know what to do. And she actually was not working on Mondays. She's a therapist and busy, obviously, with the kids and the sports and everything, and wanted to go to their games and couldn't. She didn't have the energy to drive out to their games, but she actually took Mondays off too, because she had to have all these doctor's appointments. She was, for her migraine, she was going to neurology. For her GI, she was all bloated out. She was going to gastroenterology. She was, I'm trying to think what else she was doing. Oh, of course, her OB, because she was hot flashing and not eat, so she was exploring HRT. She was doing all these things. I started working with her. We cleaned up her diet. We worked on stress and sleep, because that can be a really big factor here. And that can solve a lot of issues. Stress and sleep, people don't realize, affect your hormones in a serious way, in a negative way. And so we worked on some of these things. She lost 30 pounds. Yes, she felt great. She felt better. She wanted to fit into a dress for a bar mitzvah, and she did feel good. But the thing that this is one of my clients, I didn't even expect this. She saved herself a lot of time and money, because not only was she not running around to all these doctor's appointments and not working on Mondays to reserve her time, but she, wasn't spending money on, because the over-the-counter medications, whatever, Sudafed and, Prevacid, they had her on this Prevacid because she had acid reflux. She wasn't spending any money on that. And she wasn't spending money on going to the doctor with her copay and the parking and the time spent. She had more energy. Oh, and she was able to exercise again because she wasn't in pain. So she was able to go back to her favorite jazzercise, but she was saving herself ultimately time and money. She was able to, she wasn't sleeping. So she would sleep in the morning till 10 o'clock. And she really wanted to be that mom, because she was working, that got up with her kids and made them breakfast or sat with them and got them out the door. And she was finally able to do that because she was able to fall asleep at a normal hour, wake up with her kids, get them off to school, and just be more productive. It entirely changed her life. And we didn't need that much time, and it didn't take that much effort. We made some nutritional shifts. We talked about individually how she could improve her sleep, because I know everyone's situation is different, who their partner is, and if they're snoring, if they want to watch TV before they go to bed, it's not great. But, I helped her sort of negotiate with her husband about the TV, got him out watching TV in the other room. And she just made so many changes but the thing was the money. I never even thought about that before this client, because she was able to work now on Mondays. And so she was able to take clients on Mondays instead of she had to literally take off of her job, like not take clients, because she needed the Mondays for her Monday doctor's appointments and to be on the phone with the insurance companies and all this stuff. And she's just thrilled, and her husband's thrilled about the time and money that she gained from improving her health. And a lot of people don't realize they say, oh, I just want to feel better. But there's tons of other things that happen for your life, for your entire life, by changing what you're doing with your own body.
Yeah, it is really profound, and they often will go into it maybe just for weight loss, but when they have their life truly transformed. And a lot of people don't realize how much energy every day is spent revolving around poor health. Like literally not having not being able to spend time with your kids, and not being able to do the work, you're rolling back your income. And, I know someone else I know, she had gotten her clients off of, she calculated, $600 a month worth of medications. And so who knows how much she's saved off her medications and the doctor's office visits and that, but just the medications alone that her doctors willingly take her off of, because her situation has improved when she took control of her health. For this person, saving $600 a month, if this woman lived another 20 years, that saved her $144,000. It's incredible. These are big life-changing decisions. The impact that you and other health coaches have is immense. That's why I like to do these interviews, to inspire people to know, you don't have to suffer with whatever you're suffering with. There's always hope, because who we truly are is pure wellness. And when we change things, and sometimes it's really helpful, time saving, rather than trying the trial and error way, is to find someone who's cracked the code on your particular thing, whether it's a brain injury or whatever that you have, and go, okay, how did you do that? What do I need to do? And for you to be able to take people through that, the spin-off benefits, just the relationship, even with her husband and with her children, how do you put a price tag on that? It's immense. And to be able to have time to enjoy life. She likes doing her jazzercise or dance class thing. To be able to do that is awesome. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And I always tell people that come to me is that your body knows what to do. You just have to give it the opportunity. You have to give it the right food. You got to give it the sleep. It knows how to detox. You know, as we age, it gets a little creaky, and you have to pay a little bit more attention to it because it doesn't work as well. That's definitely a thing. But your body does know what to do. We were given the tools to, like, you know, heal, and it does know what to do. Just need to give it, I guess, give it a chance. I think you said that once. I think that's your line. Give it half a chance.
Yeah, exactly. But it's true. And awesome. Well, this has been wonderful. If people are listening and they're like, how can I get in touch with Sherri, Sherri Fogelman? How do I get in touch with her? I have some questions I want to ask her. How can people get in contact with you if they want to learn more or know more about you or what you do, or if they have a question about their own health that maybe you could help answer? How can people get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is to go to my website, which is sherrifogelman.com. I'm also on Instagram, and I post a lot of free information on there, and you can DM me and ask me questions about your particular issue, and I'm happy to do that. And I've got lots of resources on both, you know, Instagram, on my link tree, just click my bio, and certainly go to my website, sherrifogelman.com. Yeah.
Awesome. So sherrifogelman.com, that's SHERRI, and Fogelman, FOGELMAN.com. So Sherri with an I, Fogelman, one N.com. And well, it was an absolute pleasure, Sherri. I know that your clients love you. They sing your praises. You work pretty much primarily only through word of mouth referral. You are one of our I'm going to say busiest, most desired health coaches. Just people are just, you know, chomping at the bit to have you work your magic with them, and just have that like close hand holding support. So I just want to thank you for sharing some of that, dispelling some myths, if nothing else, inspiring people to that they can do this, empowering them like you can do this. Shop the periphery, stay out of the middle of the market, some of those things. I think it's really, really tremendous. So thank you so much for everything that you do and for spending time with us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, guys, that's it for this episode. If you have questions or comments, pop them in, and stay tuned for another episode of Health Coach TV. Be good for you.